What's coming up? In this special episode, I guest host for Dinesh and welcome Cindy Cruse Ratcliff, who is an award-winning songwriter, producer, screenwriter, speaker, and artist, and much, much more. She's released 5 Billboard chart-topping CDs. She's also the senior worship leader at Lakewood Church. Subscribe to Dinesh's channel on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Google, and Spotify. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
America needs this voice. The times are crazy. In a time of confusion, division, and lies, we need a brave voice of reason, understanding, and truth. This is the Dinesh D'Souza podcast.
Hey guys, I have a very exciting guest with me today, and it's going to be a little bit less political than it usually is because, first of all, hubby's not here, so I can do whatever I want. But anyway, so all that to say, if you haven't seen Vindicating Trump, you need to see it before the election.
I've seen it.
Cindy's
it's really
seen
good.
it. So, it's out there on DVD. You can get them at salemnow.com, DVDs for everybody, especially people that are not on board yet. Those are the very people that really need to see this. The other streaming platforms are rumble.com, locals.com, and of course, salemnow.com. So if you haven't, go check that out. And first things first, early voting is happening everywhere in, I believe, the entire nation. Texas has been having early voting for the last few days. I early voted on Tuesday, and I have to say it was the longest line ever. It was 2 hours long. However, I did it. I was like, I'm going to do it. Dinesh, I'm going to take him this weekend to do it. He's out of town, but I'm going to take him because it's so important. There are a lot of things that are at stake with this election. And a couple of things that I just want to say in case that you're kind of haven't voted or you're on the fence or whatever. I just want to know, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago? I mean, that's a very important question that you need to ask yourself if you're not decided. Is the world on fire? I mean, are our enemies emboldened? I think the world is on fire. I think it's safe to say that the world is on fire. Is crime up? Do you feel comfortable letting your daughter, your sister, your mother go shopping alone, especially in a big city? Do you feel comfortable having them go jog or walk alone? I don't. And I think that if that is something that is important to you, I think it's something that you need to go and definitely vote on to stop. Crime is up everywhere, and that is one reason why. The other party likes to embolden criminals, and when they are emboldened, they do their thing. So, as you know, very important to go vote for that. The other thing is all of these criminal gangs that are coming in from Venezuela, other parts of Central and South America, through the open borders. I think Kamala Harris said that, immigration is better now. Illegal immigration is not as bad. Well, you know what? What are we doing with all the people that came in already? There isn't anything in place to send them back. And I tell you for a fact, Venezuela does not want them back. So we already have them. We don't want more of them. We don't want more. We have enough with our own criminals. We don't want other criminals coming in. So a safe border is something that you really need to think about. And who's the party that upholds Judeo-Christian principles? I remember in 2012, during one of the Democratic conventions, they booed God on the floor when they wanted to include God in the platform, in the Democrat Party platform. I think that tells you everything you need to know. So, my friends, go out and vote. A couple of states, I think, have 2 weeks of early voting. Check your local county to see what it is in your county. But but do it before Election Day, because if it's this congested in early voting, I can only imagine what it's like on Election Day. So go do it. Weekends, I believe they're also open. So no excuse. If you work Monday through Friday, you can go Saturday or Sunday. So all of that is preparing me to kind of shift gears and do something a little more fun, I think, than, I mean, I love politics, yes, but it's important.
Politics are important.
But I also love singing, and I have for a very long time. And this young lady that we have with us today is an amazing worship leader, singer, songwriter, you name it. And I've followed your career a long, long time. In fact, we have our vocal coach in common.
Yes.
And I started seeing her about 20 years ago. And I know you don't remember this, but I did run into you during a session. I was leaving a session and you were coming in, and we kind of exchanged, hellos or whatever. But that was like 20 years ago. And,
I'm still at it.
Fate. I know. And fate would have it that we would connect again via our friend Sharon, and she's amazing.
Yeah, she is.
Both think that. So all that to say, I want to kind of just ask you, how did you have a calling for not just singing but worship leading? Or maybe we could start with singing first. Give me your background.
When I was 3 years old, my dad was on staff at a church. My dad's been a pastor for, he's in heaven now, but he was a pastor for over 65 years. And when he wasn't a pastor, he was on staff at churches as a worship, they didn't call them worship leaders back then. He was the song director. And if you ever were in like a denominational church back in the day, you knew what a song director was. And my dad was one of those. And we had a group that came to our church to sing. I was 3 years old, and I was sitting next to my dad, and I said, I want to do that when I grow up. I mean, I instantly just felt so connected to that. And at the time, my family, we all sang, but we weren't like professional singers or anything. And when I was 9 years old, my dad resigned the church he was pastoring and started into evangelism. And my family, by this time, we were singing together. And we packed everything up and went on the road with my dad doing revivals all over the country. And I'd never really knew anything other than singing. And it's always been a passion. It's always been the thing that strengthens me. And, it's not on the Strength Finders test, but it is for me. And I always knew that was the lane I was supposed to be in. And when I was later in life, I went through a terrible, unwanted divorce. And while I was going through that divorce, a pastor friend of mine called, and he had just planted a church. And he said, I would like for you to come and lead the music. I mean, there really weren't worship leaders at the time. And, this was 30 years ago. And he said, I'd like for you to come do the music for our church. And I said, well, I've never done that. I've just sung with my family or sung with my husband or in the studio or whatever. And he said, I'm just going to be really bold. And my family really trusted this man. He said, I think if you don't come do this, you might miss the next season of your life.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I did. And it just opened the door for me to really step into the calling of leading worship. And 30 years later, here I still am standing on the platform leading worship.
That is amazing, Cindy, that you were able to do that. In the next segment, I'm going to ask you in particular about worship leading. I did it, and it's a very, it's not as easy as people think, because just the act of worship itself is misunderstood by a lot of people. They think, oh yeah, the person up on stage is basically giving us a concert, and we're just going to watch and listen and clap and not really participate. So when we come back, I'm going to ask you about the act of worship and about, as a worship leader, how do you get your congregation to actually do it and forget about the aspect of the, I guess, the stage, whatever, what's on stage, but rather what's in your heart and not even so much about the song. Of course, it has to be, theologically sound, and we'll talk about that as well. Okay. But I think a lot of people might have some questions about that, and so in the next segment, I'm going to come back. We're going to talk to Cindy, continue talking to her about the act of leading worship and a lot of other things.
There's a lot at stake, of course, in this upcoming election, but you know what? Regardless of who's sitting in the White House, the fuse on the economy has already been lit. 4 years of a conservative presidency will not be enough to turn the tide on our $35 trillion national debt. And if the left wins, well, it's like throwing gas on a dumpster fire. You don't have full control over the election's outcome, but guess what? You can diversify your savings now by investing in gold from Birch Gold, like Debbie and I have. For millennia, gold has stood firm in the face of greedy governments, economic upheavals, and global strife, and it can help protect you now. Birch Gold, my gold company, will help you convert an IRA of 401k into an IRA in physical gold, and the good news, it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. In the past 4 years, the buying power of the US dollar has declined. The price of gold has increased 40%. Coincidence? Well, I think not. Text Dinesh to 989898 to get started. You get a free information kit. No obligation, just information. Trust Birch Gold, as I do, to protect your savings. Text Dinesh to 989898 today. We are officially in that time of the year where eating becomes way off balanced. Parties, holidays, family gatherings, they always mean more snacks, more sweets, generally indulging in all the wrong foods. And when your eating habits get off balance, so can you. That's why I strongly recommend Balance of Nature daily supplements. Here's what we're talking about. Fruits and veggies in a capsule. These fruit and veggie supplements are sourced from whole fruit and vegetable ingredients, all the things you may be missing, all the things you need to make up for being off balance during the eating season. So make sure you're getting more of a variety of fruit and vegetable ingredients every step of the way with Balance of Nature. Start a trend toward better health today with my special startup offer. Whether you order online or call direct, you got to use promo code America. You'll get 35% off plus free shipping and a money back guarantee. Here's the number to call: 800-246-8751. Again, 800-246-8751, or you can go to balanceofnature.com. When you use discount code America, you get it all: 35% off, free shipping, and a money back guarantee.
Hey, we are back with Cindy Cruse Ratcliff, and we're going to continue talking about worship, the act of worship, what it takes to be a worship leader, and anything else that we can think of. This is kind of a free-flowing conversation, so anything can happen.
I love that.
So Cindy, how do you distinguish being the singer-songwriter on stage and a worship leader? How are those things different?
I think that it's really a position of your heart and your spirit, of whether you're performing for people or whether you're trying to usher in the presence of God. And I think a lot of people get confused because they sit in a seat and they, especially at Lakewood, we have the most amazing production ever. I mean, we have beautiful production, and really every single person behind the scenes in the production team, they feel like this is their ministry too. They're not just simply, running cables and fixing lights and running the sound and all of that. They really feel like this is their ministry as well. And so I think it's just when you take a posture of performance, then it's really easy for people just to sit and enjoy the excellence of what's happening. But when you take a posture of worship and you're really trying to engage in the presence of God, the people experience that whether they want to or not. You can't deny God's presence when it enters a room. And so I think if your heart and your spirit is in the right place and you're really trying to encounter the presence of the Lord, the people will encounter that as well. There's a scripture in Revelation where it talks about how when Lucifer was in heaven, he trafficked the presence of God, which, I mean, we all know the word traffic now.
Mm-hmm.
And just when you read that in terms of how we know the word traffic, it really puts into perspective what Satan was doing with the presence of God, how he used it for himself. And I think if you stand in that posture of using God's presence for yourself, it's a very dangerous place. And people don't encounter the Lord in the way that they should and the way that they could when you take that posture, rather than, I'm going to be a reflection of God's presence, of his glory. I'm here only to reflect that back to the people, not to absorb. We're not made to absorb that. We're made to reflect. In fact, my name means reflector of light.
Oh my gosh.
So
really?
that
Wow.
is really what I, as a worship leader, that's what we do. We reflect the glory of the Lord so people can encounter that and experience that and just make a place for it.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. How do you go about selecting songs, and are they your songs? Do you write them? Do you do a combination? How do you go about doing that?
We do a combination of songs that are written from worship leaders at Lakewood and other great worship songs. You know, we don't do exclusively Lakewood songs. So that's always been a combination. We actually have a meeting where about a dozen of us come together and we submit songs, we listen to songs, we talk about songs, and it's a very safe place where people can be honest about what they feel about the song, if it's theologically sound. And so we make a list for, and we prayerfully do that. Before every set list meeting, we just ask the Lord, direct us in making these set lists. And it's really kind of uncanny. Because, I mean, if you're being led by the Holy Spirit, he knows what's coming. Mm-hmm. And it's uncanny how we'll make a set list for a certain weekend and pastor's message will be spot on for what we're singing in that set list.
Okay.
And people will come forward for prayer. My husband's always down in the altar praying with people. And he'll say, it was so crazy. You guys sang this song and this person came up for prayer and that's what they needed. And, you know, it's just... so cool how the Lord orchestrates all of that. But that's how we do it. We do it as a team. And it's a great time. It's one of my favorite times with the team because we just get to sit down and be together rather than, you know, kind of being at work.
Right.
So it's awesome.
Yeah. And how big is your team? I mean, how big is the team at Lakewood?
Well, it's always growing. We have thousands of volunteers. So if you count the choir as our volunteers, there's probably 200 or 300 in our choir.
Oh my
and
goodness.
The team, we have a rotating team of probably, I would say maybe 15 or 20 worship leaders. And then our band, we have a set band that we use almost every week. And we have, you know, several musicians that rotate in and out when they need time off or whatever. So it's not a huge team, you know, probably 30 or 40 people of, you know, that stand on the platform, core team at Lakewood. So.
And did you start this worship team like with Lakewood?
Well, 25 years ago, I was actually the first hire that Joel ever made as pastor of Lakewood Church. And I ran everything that had to do with anything musical at the church for about 10 or 12 years. And the type of worship that they had before I came was very, very different. And I think it was really kind of symbolic because once Joel became the pastor, you know, his dad passed away. That's why he became the pastor. And the worship leader that was there before moved to Dallas to start a church. And so I think it was just how the Lord said, okay, this is a shift. You know, it's a change of guard. And I stepped into that position and really brought the music into a very different place. I came from a church that was multicultural. I love multicultural worship. You know, the worship that they had before me was very kind of like old school revival music. And I brought a much more contemporary, you know, R&B kind of gospel, if black gospel, it was a combination of things, and it had never been done before, and especially in church. I mean, you have black churches, you have white churches, you have Hispanic churches, and Lakewood was none of those things. It was all of those things. And the worship then really began to reflect that, because that's my heart. It's always been my heart. And if you look on the platform today, you'll see black, Hispanic, white, Asian. I mean, you see it all. And that's always been the heart of Lakewood. They've always had open doors to the nations, to cultures, to socioeconomic. They don't pick and choose. The door's open to everyone, and that's why they called it the Oasis of Love for so long. So I brought in a very different style of worship, and in doing that, I've always been a collaborator. I feel I'm much more satisfied collaborating than I am doing things on my own. And I brought my friend Israel Houghton in. Several years later, I brought Steve Crawford and Deidre Greathouse, who were the core of a group called Anointed.
Yes.
And they came on with us. And then in the meantime, the young people from Lakewood started growing up, and they'd been around this music for 20 years. And now they're stepping in and leading. So it's a really exciting time. I mean, when I first came to Lakewood, Joel's daughter was, I think she was 9 months old when
my goodness.
When I came to Lakewood, and now she's leading the department. So it's very cool. She's darling, and she's very smart and just so humble and kind. Alexandra is her name. And she's doing a great job leading this department.
Wow.
Amazing job.
Wow. And that's awesome that you don't feel like, hey, I've been here, so long.
Right.
I want to continue in that role.
Right.
And, you just, because, and I sense that from you, because your spirit is that of just humility and just super nice. And so, I've met a lot of worship leaders and singers being in that field. It's all about them.
Yeah.
And ego is bigger than anything else.
Yeah.
And so it's very refreshing to hear that, because a lot of people probably don't know that.
Yeah.
They have no idea that you are this way, and that this is how Lakewood evolved, the music ministry evolved in Lakewood.
Yeah.
And how large is Lakewood? What's the congregation size?
Well, it shifted after COVID. Pardon me. And we then gained an extremely large online congregation. We have millions of people that view our service every week. And but at church, I would say, I don't know, maybe 20,000 people in a weekend come. So it's a little bit different than before. When people weren't afraid to come and get in a big group of people. Yeah. And then, of course, with the dangers that we have sometimes in large crowds with gun violence and that kind of thing, it after we had the incident that we had at the church, that was a bit of a shock for us. But I would say in maybe the last 2 or 3 months, the crowds have really started to come back.
Oh, good.
So that's exciting. But our online congregation is massive.
Wow.
Yeah, it just really opened up a new avenue of ministry for us when COVID happened. In fact, I think the Easter that we were first shut down, I think Lakewood was the number one viewed service online in the world over the Pope.
Wow.
So it was pretty crazy. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, when we come back, we'll keep chatting some more, and see you then.
Can you imagine your child being lost alone in the woods for 9 days? There's a new movie. It's called Lost on a Mountain in Maine. It's produced by Sylvester Stallone. It's the inspiring true story of 12-year-old Don Fendler, separated from his family in a fast-moving storm and lost in the remote wilderness of northern Maine. For 9 days, he fights to stay alive with no food, no proper clothing. He didn't even know the danger he was in. Hey, as a parent, this would be one of my worst nightmares. His disappearance captures national headlines, sparking a massive search effort with hundreds of volunteers, including his own father, who was afraid he'd never see his son again. Don't miss this inspirational family adventure film of the year, Lost on a Mountain in Maine, from Blue Fox Entertainment. It's coming to theaters nationwide on November 1st. Get tickets online at lostonamountainинmainemovie.com. That's lostonamountainинmainemovie.com. Are you feeling overwhelmed by the increasing cost of health insurance? Have you had enough of not having control over your healthcare dollars? Introducing Share Right. It's healthcare done the right way. At Share Right, you're not just a number, you're part of a caring community. And forget about paying excessive premiums. With Share Right, you stand to save 30 to 50% compared to health insurance. So think about what you could do with all those savings. But it's more than just savings. Share Right ensures you have access to the care you deserve precisely when you need it, from routine checkups to unexpected emergencies. With Share Right, your healthcare is their top priority. Empower yourself today by taking control of your healthcare costs. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh to learn more. See how much you can save. Visit shareright.org/Dinesh. That's shareright.org/Dinesh for healthcare done the right way.
I'm back with Cindy Cruse Ratcliff, and we're going to continue our chat about worship leading, singing, and Cindy, you've done some CDs. Tell us about that.
Well, how far back do we want to go? Personally,
how many CDs have you done?
Well, I did over 23 or 4 records with my family.
Oh.
And then I've done 3 or 4 records with Lakewood. One with the symphony here in Houston. I've done, I think, 5 solo CDs. And so I've done quite a few of, different reasons. But yeah, I've done quite a few.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I've only done 3, and I thought I was doing great, but
you're doing awesome. I think it's just different seasons in my life.
Yeah.
The season with my family, traveling all over the country, singing together. I was on the road with my family. They traveled for 20 years and I was on the road with them for 15, and then I got married. So, doing the records with them, that was always fun. I mean, they're the ones who taught me how to be humble. Trust me. It's like if you get full of yourself, they would look at you with the evil eye, like, come on, get it under control. Yeah. We're all in this together.
Yeah.
But doing the solo CDs were really more of like a self-expression for me. And then doing the CDs for the church, you just wanted to capture what was happening in the church. And that's what we did with those CDs. And those were so fun.
Wow.
Just loved it.
So you are a mother and a wife.
Yes.
And so you have to balance that with this career and perhaps future careers. Because I know we talked a little bit about some of the things that you have planned. And I don't know how much of that you want to talk about.
We can talk about any of it.
So I know that you approached me about a movie script that you have. Tell us about that.
Well, it's based on a book or a trilogy of books by Calvin Miller, and these books were favorites of my dad's. And he would read them, and because I was a young songwriter at the time when he first happened upon these books, he would sit me down and read these passages from these books because it was written in a poetry form. And we would sit and cry together because they're just so beautiful. And about 10 years ago, I got the film rights to this trilogy, and I started working on the script. It took me 2 years to really start writing because I had no idea what I was doing or where to even begin.
Wow.
Right? And then it took me 7 years to complete because I had 3 small children. So, I would put kids to bed and then get my computer out and work, or I would get them off to school and go to the coffee shop and work. And that was all in between what I was doing at Lakewood as well, And at that time, we were touring extensively with Joel all over the world, doing Night of Hope events. And so it was a lot, so I just had to kind of get it in there where I could. And I finished it about a year ago, and I've been working on finding the right people to partner with to get it done. So
Yeah.
we're just in, I can say early stages of this,
Yes.
although I've had it for 10 years,
Yes.
but I'm really excited about it. It is a musical, or they will all be musicals, but it's a really I don't want to give too much away,
Yeah.
but I got to keep a little under wraps, but
Yeah.
I'm excited about the project very
Yeah.
much. And I have some really, just gifted and talented people who are partnering with me. So I'm excited about it.
Well, I pray that it happens, because I think that a musical, especially a musical with a Christian storyline, is what we need today.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that don't know Christ, and to be able to bring Christ to the big screen like that and have people actually find him
Right.
when they don't even know that they're going to,
Right.
I think it is amazing, because we can evangelize and we can proselytize and everything, but sometimes God has a time and a place for them, and to change their hearts when he wants to change their hearts.
And I love, going outside of the church walls to do that. And, I'm so grateful that a lot of Christian media has been successful. And this is not necessarily a Christian film, but it is a faith-based film. And I'm very particular about things not being corny, and really representing the kingdom of God the right way. And so, that's what I'm most excited about, is getting to put something out there that's unique and different and really excellent quality.
Well, we'll have to get you back on the podcast when it's out.
Absolutely.
That'll be really amazing.
Yes.
So we talked a little bit earlier about you're a mom.
Yes.
And I am extremely interested in hearing that story, because it's a really amazing story.
It is an amazing story.
So we can start at this segment and then end it with the last segment, because with so many of us that are pro-life, we always preach, don't get rid of your baby. Your baby is life. God gave you this baby for a reason. And while there are circumstances where women feel like they can't, have the pregnancy, I am very pro-life, and I always say, but you can always give your baby up for adoption, because there are so many people out there that can't have babies for whatever reason. They're either, infertile, or they can't. Yeah. And so tell us how that happened. And also, you have a baby of your own as well. So tell us all about that.
So my husband Marcus and we have a son that's our own biological son. I gave birth a couple of years after we got married. And we had been trying and not very successful. And one Sunday, Miss Doty, who is Joel Osteen's mom, she asked if there was anyone there who had been trying to have a baby and had not yet become pregnant. And out of literally thousands of people there, I was the only person who raised my hand. And this was back when we were in the older building before we moved to the Compact Center. And so she brought my husband up, laid hands on us and prayed. And 9.5 months later, I delivered our baby boy. So, right. And so I was an older mom. I delivered at 39. And so we started trying to have more children, and just couldn't. I tried everything. We did all the fertility treatments, everything. And the last fertility doctor that we saw, he said, your chances are absolutely over. He said, in fact, by looking at your chart, it's a miracle that you have the baby you have. And so
Cindy,
we began to really open our eyes to the possibility of adoption, because we wanted more children. And that story is really magical.
Oh, I can't wait. Well, let's go ahead and take a pause, and then we'll start with that in our very last segment. I wish I could have you for way more segments than that, because I know it's going to be a good one. So we'll be right back.
Mike Lindell is such a great guy. He's got a heart of gold. Mike and MyPillow love giving back to those in need. They sent a truckload of 14,000 MyPillows to those impacted by Hurricane Helene. But even though he loves to give back, a large retail store just canceled a huge order that had already left the warehouse. And so, besides giving to those in need, Mike is like, okay, I'm going to pass the savings directly on to you. And for the first time ever, you can get a standard classic MyPillow for wholesale prices, just $14.88. Wow. But it gets better. For a limited time, they're offering the entire classic collection at wholesale prices. Get queen size MyPillows, $18.88. Upgrade to a king for just $1 more. Get the body pillows for $29.88. Multi-use MyPillows, just $9.88. Here's the number to call, 800-876-0227, or you can go to mypillow.com, use promo code Dinesh, and take advantage of wholesale pricing for the first time ever. On top of that, get free shipping on orders over $75. These prices have never been offered this low before. Call 800-876-0227 or go to mypillow.com. Use promo code Dinesh. Get the standard MyPillow, just $14.88, the lowest price ever. There are limited quantities at this price, and once they're gone, they're gone.
We are back with Cindy Cruse Ratcliff, and we are talking about adoption. And I can't wait to hear the story of how she adopted her 2 little babies. Who are not so baby anymore.
Jump right. 16. I was telling her earlier that my phone is blowing up today because they're getting ready for HOCO or homecoming, in case y'all don't know what the HOCO is. And I've got to put this in another room because it will be going off every 2 seconds. But yeah, my husband and I, we had our own biological son and wanted more children, and I just couldn't have any more. I was too late in life. And so we started the fertility process, and it just, the doctor said no chance. So we started looking at the option of adoption. That's funny, option of adoption. And a friend of ours has a ministry in Nashville, Tennessee, where they minister to girls in crisis. And these girls can have any range of issues that they're dealing with and challenged with, from alcoholism, drugs, teen pregnancy, eating disorders, abuse, all of the things. And the woman who founded this ministry is a close friend of ours. And she called me and she said, Cindy, she said, I know you've kind of been thinking about adoption, because we had talked to her about it. She said, I have a girl coming through the program right now. She's 19 and she's pregnant with twins. Now, let me just backtrack a tiny bit.
Wow.
Right? Twins. So our son at the time now is about 5 years old. And he was actually with us at the last doctor's appointment because we had no one to keep him that day. And we thought the doctor was going to tell us, oh, I've got the miracle thing. Here it is. And when he told us that, we couldn't have any more children, I went home. I was just devastated. I was crying on the couch. And Windsor, our oldest, he came and sat down next to me. He said, Mama, he said, are you crying because the doctor said we can't have any more babies? And I said, yes, Windsor, I am. He said, don't worry.
Aww.
Jesus is going to bring us some babies.
Oh.
Now, from the time he was 2.5, he prayed for a sister and a brother.
Oh.
Every night. He prayed for an older sister and a younger brother, which we didn't know how that was going to work out. But he prayed for a sister and a brother for, 2.5 years, 3 years. And so she said, this girl's pregnant with twins. She said, are you interested? And I knew immediately that those were our babies. I mean, as soon as she said, I have a girl pregnant in the program with twins, I knew those were our babies. I said, well, let me call my husband, make sure he's good with this. And so I called her back. I said, we're going to go for this. He was on board 100%. And so we got our little package together, sent it to her. The young mom looks at our package, looked at our pictures, and she went, they look like us, speaking of the birth dad and her. And so a couple of months later, we were in Nashville. Marcus and I went by the ministry and met the young woman and sat down and talked with her. And about 30 minutes into the conversation, she says, I don't need to talk anymore. I've chosen you guys.
Oh, my
So we go from just, this is an idea and hopefully this is going to work out, to her saying, it's a done deal. I've chosen y'all. So I found out in January that I couldn't have any more children.
Mm-hmm.
In March, our friend Nancy calls and says, I have a girl in the program who's pregnant with twins.
Mm-hmm.
In May, we're in Nashville. She says, I've chosen you guys. And so within 6 months, we go from this devastating news to the birth mom saying, I've chosen you. And the crazy thing was the December before that, January, Windsor was praying one night and he said, Mom, do you think the Lord can bring us a baby by Christmas? And I said, well, Windsor, I don't know if the Lord's going to do that, but we'll just see what he does, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Well, little did we know the birth mom was pregnant at Christmas.
Oh.
So she has her babies in July.
Were you there?
We were there. She asked us to be there. And when she went into labor, I called Pastor Joel. He said, go. He said, we got it here. We'll handle everything. Don't worry about it. Just go until the babies are born. So their due date, this is a really cool little interesting thing. Their due date was 8/8/08. That was their due date. Well, they were born on July 19th in Nashville. So because we live in Texas, you have to go through all these extra things that, you know, to take a baby from one state to another. Of course, all the adoption papers, then the birth mom goes through a waiting period as well. And so we pack everything up and Marcus's parents live in Nashville. So
Wow.
it was all just like orchestrated by the Lord in every way. And we get everything packed up. We head to Texas. A hurricane had blown through, so we had to wait in Little Rock because the weather got so bad. And so the next day, we all get packed up again. We head into Houston. We pull into our driveway, not even thinking about it, on 8/8/08. On their due date, they got to our house.
Oh.
So, you know,
that is
if we had not, you know, I mean, that just goes to show that you have to stay
Amazing.
in faith. I mean,
Oh,
little
yeah.
Windsor, when he said, of course, he's 22 now. And if you do the math, you know how old I am. He
You
said,
don't look it,
right,
so-
thank you. Thank you. He sat next to me saying, don't worry about it. The Lord's going to bring us some babies. And the twins are a boy and a girl, just so you know. I mean, he prayed for a sister and a brother, and that's what he got. Just staying in faith is so important, you know, when you're believing, and you may get the
Amen to
most
that.
devastating news that what you're believing for is not happening. It's impossible.
Mhm.
And the fact that, you know, we just said, Lord, you know, we just lay our plans down and open up to whatever you have.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of this story is, one of the beauties of this story is that my husband's sister had given up a baby as a teenage pregnancy and had lived with so much guilt and hurt, not knowing how this baby's life was, or, you know, any of that. And seeing the redemption from our side, seeing how a family feels when they receive a baby with adoption, it did so much healing for her. So we had her redemption and our redemption story, wanting more children. The birth mom having a redemption story of knowing that someone who loved and wanted her babies are taking them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, it's just so cool how God can use something that's so devastating in your life and really open just the windows of heaven and pour out a blessing that's more than you could ask, think, or imagine. You know, that's just the way our God is.
Amen to that.
Yeah.
That's a really beautiful story. Now, the birth mother, does she still keep in contact, or
We
is it?
do through the ministry.
Okay.
So not one-on-one
Mhm.
until we all agree on, I think it's a good time.
Mm-hmm.
But we do keep in contact with the ministry. We send packages and
Mm-hmm.
pictures and tell her what they're doing and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's the ultimate sacrifice, I think, to be able to give up your babies. I
Yeah.
mean, this is not one baby, but two babies.
Yeah.
And know that they're going to be loved and cared for,
Yeah.
and, you know, and know that you could not have done it yourself. You know,
Yeah.
these babies would have probably been in poverty and, you know, not healthy. So the fact that she did that, and the fact that God lined everything up, I mean, what a just beautiful story, and
Yeah.
hopefully a story of inspiration.
Well, I think adoption is
people.
really so underutilized
It is
in America and under encouraged, because, you know, so often people think that all of the things of how to get rid of
Mhm.
a pregnancy. And when there are so many families wanting children, and there really is a shortage of adoption
There are.
babies. So I think that that's one thing that we could really do better as a society
Mhm.
of finding loving homes for these children that are unwanted.
Yeah. What would you tell someone right now that might be struggling with not knowing what to do about their pregnancy?
Well, I think first of all, think before you do the ultimate choice of abortion. Just think first of what you're doing to yourself emotionally, because it's an absolute known scientific fact that there's so many emotional scars that come with abortion. And so what you're doing to yourself, obviously to the baby, but that there are so many faith-based organizations that would love to help you through this in every possible way. And I know of several here in Houston that are amazing at helping teenage pregnancy, or any pregnancy at any age, if you're thinking of terminating your pregnancy. But adoption, just thinking of maybe there's a family that would love to have your baby and raise it in a loving, caring home. And just don't make the ultimate choice too soon.
Yeah.
Think about it first.
Yep.
And know that there are a lot of people out there willing to walk with you through the process.
Yeah, and you're one of those people. So thank you for doing that and for bringing this wonderful story to. I think ending with it is an amazing story, and I absolutely loved having you on. I know we could go on and on about just your career and singing, and because I know we didn't cover half the stuff I wanted to talk about, but thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me,
and for showing us grace with God's providence about not only your career, but your children.
Yeah.
Just beautiful.
Thank you.
So thank you guys. And Dinesh and I will see you tomorrow.
Subscribe to the Dinesh D'Souza podcast on Apple, Google, and Spotify, or watch on Rumble, YouTube, and salemnow.com.